Hey guys, Jen here. So yesterday I did pass my national portion of the real estate exam and the state portion on the first try, so I'm super excited. And if you're still studying for your exam or you're taking it for the second or third or fourth time, I feel for you. It was such a hustle, it's such a grind, there's so much stuff to know, and it really can stress you out, and it does suck up all your free time. But my first piece of advice is to hang in there because you know the stuff, you will get through it, and I am going to cover what I think I did right heading into that test center. I sat down in the car immediately after and I just noted things that I think will be useful and helpful for you guys, because there's little things that you can do during the exam and the day before the exam that I think make the biggest difference between passing and failing, especially if you've taken that test and you've only missed it by a few. Or if you're heading in for multiple tries, you know the information. There's just little things you can do. So stay tuned with me, and I'm going to go over exactly what I wrote down heading into that testing center. So first tip is take your mask off for the dang picture. So there's my picture after passing, forever with the mask on. I did have to wear the mask the entire time, as I'm sure you guys know, so be prepared for that. Get a comfortable one. Get one that makes you feel comfortable in your own space. So before I start, I will tell you guys my scores. I did get a 73 out of 80 on the national portion and a 67 out of 74 on the Colorado State portion. With that said, my first piece of advice is literally nobody cares. No managing broker, no client is ever going to be like, hey, how'd you score on these sections? What percent of the questions did you get right? Was it your first try or your second try? Nobody cares. So when I went into the test yesterday, I remember being relaxed, thinking worst case scenario is I'm going to fail both, and then I'll come back next week and pass. And I ended up passing both. I think being relaxed and not putting so much pressure on myself to pass that day really helped. And I did, one thing I want to point out is there was 8 math questions, real estate calculations on the national test. So people are saying you don't need to worry about math at all. At least for me on my national test, I did have 8 of them. So I do recommend knowing the math. I didn't spend a whole ton of time. I made 2 math videos that breaks down math and makes it simple. So I recommend checking those out in the description if you haven't yet. That's most of the math studying that I did, really, and it did help. I got 8 out of 8 right on the national portion of the test. Not I don't think there was any on the state portion. So let's go over what I think is going to help you guys pass this test, lose some of that test anxiety, stay focused, and be done with this exam. So first, the biggest thing I'll go over at the end, because this is to start. So I'll go in order of start to finish. So the first thing I did when I sat down in the room, you have your computers, there's going to be some other people. You have you have as much time as you need. There's going to be 10 to 15 questions where you get used to the computer and you practice reading the question, hitting the multiple choice. They're all just throwaway questions. So I did those, and then you get ready to start your 120 minutes for national. Before I hit the start button, I had my pencil and my scrap piece of paper. I wrote down acronyms, and I did make a day before the exam review video also in the description. I wrote down the acronyms that I thought for sure were going to be on the test, and the ones that I had trouble remembering, or the ones that I was getting wrong on practice exams. With practice exams said, I never scored higher than 71% on my Van Ed practice exam. So if you're not doing well on the practice exams, don't worry. I never got above 71%, and I got 90% above a 90% on both the state and the national. So don't let those practice exams stress you out. At least for the Van Ed ones, they were much harder than what the national and the state tests were. So I wrote down acronyms like the fiduciary duties, old car. I wrote down cost approach for churches, sales comparison approach for residential and vacant lots, and income approach for investors, because I kept mixing those up. And then I wrote down the rules for the credits and debits, because those are always super hard for me, and I knew they were going to be on the exam. So with those written down on my scratch piece of paper, when I saw the question, so like, for example, I saw a question about, about building a church. I looked down at my scratch piece of paper and I saw cost approach equals hard to compare properties, example, churches. And without having to use my mental energy, I saw the word church I saw the word cost approach in the answer, and I picked that answer. It just saves you mental energy having stuff written down on the scratch piece of paper, especially because the further you get into the exam, the more tired you're going to get. the more the words are going to start blending together. You're going to go cross-eyed 3.5 hours after staring at a screen. So write stuff down, you front and back, write small, and then when you see a question, you can just look down, know the answer, read the multiple choice answers, and know what you're looking for. So that was super helpful. I did that before I even hit start. So writing that stuff down, it didn't go into my time on the test. Next, I took bathroom breaks, you guys. So even if you don't have to go to the bathroom, I think I took 4 or 5, enough that the proctors would look at me like I was a little bit crazy because I kept getting up. I wasn't, it might be different at every testing center, but for me, we weren't allowed to leave the building, which is understandable. And we couldn't take anything with us, but you could just sign out and go to the bathroom down the hall. You could also leave snacks and drinks outside of the computer area and have your drinks and snacks there. I got up 4 or 5 times. I went to the bathroom. I did stretches. I would talk to the proctor people. At one point, this is kind of crazy, but we're going to be real estate agents. So you have to do stuff that's kind of crazy and get you out of your comfort zone. So at one point, I literally went into the bathroom and I was like, you're passing this damn test. And it was kind of like, whoa, there's my reflection reminding me why I'm here. Stop being stressed out. Deep breaths, calm down. I brought my lucky necklace with me. The proctor guy even noticed it. We chatted about it for a minute. So moral of that story is I stayed relaxed the whole time. When I felt like I was getting stressed and tight, I would get up, go stretch, take a few deep breaths. Remember that worst case scenario is I fail and I come back and pass. But I told myself I'm passing this exam. And I'd go back, re-energize, ready for the next question. So definitely take advantage of those bathroom breaks. It's not reasonable to sit there for 4 straight hours and go through both of the tests. And I didn't have an option for a break in between. As soon as I finished the national portion, it went straight to the state portion. So it is time management. When I finished the state portion, I still had about 15 minutes to spare. So I used that time to take my longest break before I started the state portion. It's a lot of talking. Sorry guys, bear with me. I do think these tips will help you. They help me so much. Okay, so next tip. I ate a snack in the middle of my testing because I don't know about you guys. I cannot function when I'm hungry. I didn't bring like a full to-go meal. I think I had trail mix. It just 2 hours in, it helped me feel energized. Maybe, again, it made me more relaxed. So I definitely recommend if you're the same way, bring a little snack. I had a noon caffeine tab in my water bottle. So when I would go take my water breaks, I was getting a little bit of caffeine every time. And that, I really do think that helps. I recommend snack, bring some caffeine depending when your test is. Maybe not if it's in the evening, but in the morning. Or I took my test at noon. I was chugging caffeine the whole time. And then this is probably the biggest one because I think this is why people fail by a few questions or just fail at all. It's not a lack of knowledge. It's test anxiety. And it's the way they word these questions. They word these questions to trick us. They use fancy jargon and they try and jumble our brain around and confuse us and make us all anxious you read all the multiple choice and you're like, well, 3 out of the 4 options seem right to me. So the biggest tip is that I would say when you're reading the questions, what I did when I was like, you guys know what I'm talking about when you read a question and you're like, what are they asking me? So I would read the question 2 or 3 times. I would write on my scratch piece of paper in my own words what they're asking. And then before reading the multiple choice, I would write what I think the answer is. And then I would look up at the answers, know what I'm looking for. Forget about the fancy words that they put in before and after the right answer. You'll have like a vocab term that's the right answer and they're going to sandwich it in between fancy words. So if I knew the vocab word was the right answer, all the other words didn't confuse me and mess me up. So they're going to throw words in to try and confuse you, to make you think that it's not the right answer, but it's the right answer. Go with your gut. You know this stuff. If it seems too good to be true or too simple to be the right answer, it's because it's probably the right answer. So go with it. So yes, so like I put down here, don't let them trick you. Pick the obvious answer. If you need to rewrite the question, write down the answer, and then look at the multiple choice. All right, guys, the last thing I wrote down, and if I think of anything else, I'll just make another video, but the last thing I wrote down immediately after taking the test yesterday was do not go back and change your answers. So the first thing I did for both tests was go through and answer all of the ones that I knew, I had no doubt that I was right. All of the ones that I wasn't sure about or had no idea, I marked. Those are the only questions I went back to review. And if I was in between B or C, I would go back, pick B, unmark it, and move on. I never, ever, ever read over questions that I already had the answer to and changed the answers. This is just from experience whenever I did that in practice exams. Plus, if you look it up, it's proven that if you go with your gut and you pick your first choice, you're probably going to be right. And it does make more sense that at the end of 4 hours of testing, you're not going to be able to recall as much information. Your brain's going to be a little bit tired. You're going to start to get frustrated than when you started the test. So do not go back and change answers. Only mark the ones that you are not sure about or you have no idea. When you're going through the first time and you mark those answers the answers that you know are correct, don't go back to them. You got it. So that's everything I wrote down in the car after the test. I did study really, really hard. I made millions of note cards. I made videos, and I'm so glad that they've been helping some of you guys. One of the biggest things I did the couple weeks leading up to the exam, instead of just like frying my brain in completely, just hating real estate, is I would listen to YouTube videos. The ones I made, I listened to Prep Agent just to review because it has everything that I've been studying for the last 3 months. And you don't have to sit down to do that. You can do it when you're driving, when you're running, when you're walking, when you're cleaning. Anytime I had free time, I don't know what to do with myself now with my headphones, because for the last couple months, all I've been doing is listening to stuff that can help me review. Because when you start studying to when you're about to take your exam, there's a lot of stuff you studied that first month that's going to be on the exam that's hard to recall if you haven't been reviewing. So while you're going through your school, review, watch videos, listen to videos. I'm so glad that my videos have helped you guys, and I hope this last 10 minutes of what worked for me during the exam helps you guys. I also recommend visualizing. Use the tips that I told you and how it's gonna go down. Visualize going into that testing center, sitting down, being calm, being ready, and hitting the right answers. Visualize hitting end and seeing your score pass, and how good that's gonna feel. You have to believe you're gonna pass to pass. Visualize it. If you get flustered, take deep breaths. Stay relaxed. I don't know if I can say that enough. Stay relaxed. Stay confident. You got this. So update me in the comments when your test is, or if you've already passed, how it goes. Super excited for all of you starting this real estate career. It's a scary journey. You're starting a whole new job. You have to pass this exam. Most of us haven't studied in years. So congratulations, you guys, on just taking those first steps and being in school. You will pass your exam. And thanks so much for watching. I thought I hit the off button. I didn't.